You think you're tired, but that's not the real problem. If you feel exhausted for no clear reason, this isn't burnout. It's your soul reacting to unhealed pain. You think you're tired of life, but what's actually draining you is living inside an emotional lie you don't even realize exists. You keep trying to fix how you feel, but no matter what you change on the outside, you always end up back in the same place inside. You change houses, you change routines, you change relationships, but nothing really changes within you. And the worst part, you start believing this emptiness is who you are, that this inner chaos is just your personality. But it's not. You're not broken. You're reacting to wounds you were never taught how to see. There is a pain you never learned how to name, a wound buried so deep it became part of your emotional identity. But here's a truth that can set you free. Your soul remembers things your conscious mind has forgotten. God still sees them, and He's not accusing you. He's inviting you to see. Psalm 19:12 says, "Who can discern their own errors? Forgive my hidden faults." That means there are wounds governing your life that you don't even know you carry. And until they're revealed, you'll keep feeling broken on the inside, even when everything looks blessed on the outside. But what if there's a spiritual explanation for what you're feeling? And what if it's closer than you think?
Why you sabotage good things without realizing it? Have you noticed that when things finally start going well, something inside you starts to create chaos? You think, do I really deserve this? Or worse, you don't even realize you're sabotaging. You just feel the heaviness return. You pull back, you avoid, you doubt, you make excuses. It's like your soul is whispering, go back to what hurts. At least it's familiar. That's why so many people don't heal. Not because they lack faith, not because they're lazy, but because they lack spiritual and emotional awareness. You can't change what you can't see, and what stays invisible controls your choices. Look at Peter. He walked with Jesus. He heard truth firsthand. He was called the Rock. Yet when the moment came, he denied Jesus 3 times, Matthew 26:69-75. Why? Because the fear living inside him was stronger than the faith he spoke out loud. Peter wasn't weak, he was wounded. An invisible emotional pattern ruled him. If I expose myself, I will lose everything. And until Jesus restored his identity with a look, John 21, that pattern won. How many times have you denied who you are because some part of you believes being real is dangerous? That's the root of self-sabotage.
Your image of God was shaped by your childhood. Here's something few people talk about. The way you relate to God is deeply shaped by how you were treated as a child. It doesn't matter if you grew up in church or heard about God's love your whole life. If love came with pressure, if presence came with silence, if affection came with confusion, then part of your heart believes God works the same way. You're not rejecting faith. You're rejecting the feeling of abandonment that rises when you pray and feel nothing. You confuse God's silence with the neglect you once felt. But here's the revelation. God is not your absent father. He is not your emotionally distant mother. He is not the adult who dismissed your pain. Deep down, you're carrying an emotional theology built on wounds, not truth. That's why you close off. You hear promises but don't believe they're for you, because the voice of the wound is louder than the voice of the promise. This doesn't make you weak. It makes you human, but it also calls you to awaken. Jeremiah 29:13 says, "You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." But how can you seek with your whole heart when parts of it are still trapped in fear? When God is silent, He is not absent. Have you ever prayed and all you heard was your own pain? You said, "God, speak to me," and the sky felt closed. So you assumed God pulled away. I must be doing something wrong. But what if you're hearing it wrong? Some wounds are so deep that if God spoke too soon, you'd use His answer to protect the wounded version of yourself.
God isn't just answering questions. He's restoring identity, who you were before the trauma. And sometimes that requires silence. God's silence is not punishment. It's surgical. Like anesthesia before surgery. It feels like nothing is happening, but that's where healing begins. Isaiah 30:15 says, "In quietness and trust is your strength." Sometimes you're addicted to emotional noise, so silence feels like rejection. But it's actually God teaching you a new language, presence without performance. God is still there, even when you don't feel Him, even when you don't understand. He may just be dismantling the distorted image of Him that your pain created. The desert is not punishment, it's preparation. You look at your life and feel like you're stuck. You prayed, you fasted, you tried to change, but everything feels still. So you think, God forgot me, or worse, I ruined everything. But what if this nothing you feel is exactly where God is shaping you? Moses spent 40 years in the desert before his calling manifested, Exodus 3:1. No applause, no visibility, just formation. The desert doesn't define you, it reveals you. You call it stagnation. God calls it alignment. He doesn't withhold because He's angry. He waits because He loves you too much to give destiny to a wounded identity. Your wounds are making decisions for you. Why do you keep returning to the same emotional places? Because you're not choosing from awareness, you're choosing from pain. Unhealed wounds become invisible filters. If your pain wasn't in charge, what choice would you be making right now? They shape who you trust, what you tolerate, what you think you deserve. Like the prodigal son, Luke 15. He didn't leave for freedom, he left to escape internal discomfort. Healing began when he came to himself, Luke 15:17. The greatest miracle won't be external. It will be the moment you realize, I'm not destructive, my pain has been driving. Your personality might be a defense mechanism. What if your personality is actually protection? That toughness, that independence, that emotional distance, they kept you safe once, but now they're keeping you stuck. God remembers who you were before you learned to survive. Psalm 139:16 reminds us, all your days were written before one of them came to be. The Holy Spirit doesn't just comfort, He restores memory of identity. Healing is not becoming someone new. True healing is removing everything that buried who you already were. Who were you before you learned to protect yourself? Like Gideon, Judges 6. God called him mighty warrior while he was hiding. God doesn't ask you to fix yourself. He asks you to remember. You weren't created to survive. You were created to be whole. The exhaustion is not physical. You're tired because you're carrying the weight of pretending. Who would you be if you didn't have to prove anything to anyone anymore? Jesus said, "Come to me, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:28. Rest comes when you stop performing and start learning from Him. Armor is not strength. What you call strength may be unhealed trauma. God doesn't heal the version you pretend to be. He heals the one you allow Him to see. Like Naaman, 2 Kings 5. Pride almost blocked his healing. Real courage is vulnerability before God. God calls the wounded. Moses stuttered. David was overlooked. Peter failed. Paul was broken. God never chose the qualified. He qualifies the willing. My power is made perfect in weakness, 2 Corinthians 12:9. What you lost may have saved you. Jonah's storm wasn't punishment, it was redirection. Isaiah 43:18-19. Forget the former things, I am doing a new thing. You didn't lose your purpose, you lost a role that couldn't carry it. Your scars are part of your calling. Jesus returned with scars. Your pain is not random. It's a bridge. Romans 8:28 still stands.
You are not late. You were being activated internally. Jeremiah 1:5 proves it. You were chosen before the pain. Nothing was wasted. This is where it begins. If you're still here, something inside you already knows it's time to stop living from pain and start living from truth. You don't need strength. You need surrender. Psalm 34:18 says, God is close to the brokenhearted. This wasn't the algorithm. It was an answer. And if this spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who's fighting silently, because this video may be ending, but your healing might just be beginning. Maybe healing begins the moment you stop proving and finally start becoming. If this made you stop and reflect, comment, I'm healing, not for me, but for the part of you that's tired of pretending. And if someone came to your mind while watching, don't ignore that. Share this with them.